When I quit my corporate job at the age of 23, I really thought I had life figured out, and boy was I in for a rude awakening for my first few years of entrepreneurship. I learned many lessons the hard way, and today I want to share some of those lessons with you as I celebrate 5 years of being self-employed. For those of you who might be new around here, hi, I'm Ellen. I'm a social media strategist and coach, and I basically got into this whole world of entrepreneurship because I decided I didn't want to spend the rest of my life at a cubicle, and social media management was something that I could get started with no experience. You can see the theme of this video is I winged it, and now I kind of help other social media managers not wing it and do things successfully, learn from my mistakes, and scale faster to be working for themselves from anywhere in the world, living that dream as a digital nomad and helping support and grow other businesses on socials. I've split today's lessons up into 5 different categories. The first one is money related. The second one has to be about boundaries. The third one focuses on clients. Number 4 is all about failures. And number 5 is about marketing. These for me have been the crucial categories to focus on in order to scale my business. And of course, with growth comes a lot of lessons. So buckle in, it's going to be a good one. There's a reason I listed money as the first lesson, as the first category, because without money, you just have an expensive hobby. You don't have a business. And there's so many limiting beliefs and money mindset blocks that you have to break through when you start entrepreneurship. But the big one for me was learning that I had to teach my business, and more specifically my business bank accounts and cash flow, very differently to how I treated my personal bank accounts and my personal cash flow. I have always been a saver, and that did set me up very well for going into running my own business because it meant I had a really strong financial runway and was able to feed in and invest in things to help me grow. But what really started to develop for me was this guilt over spending money and seeing money going in and out of my bank account quite quickly. And I was actually listening to a podcast from another entrepreneur the other day, and they mentioned how they had their first negative cash flow month and how this completely destroyed their confidence and left them really questioning their business. And it was really interesting to hear their reflections because you are going to probably have a negative cash flow month in your business. You're probably going to have months where, you break records, you make more money than you ever thought imagined. That was definitely me when I hit my first 20K month in 2021. And I was like, dude, this is half my corporate salary that I've just made in 1 month. But likewise, I've also had months where I've had to take a step back from my business for various personal reasons, or I've tried something and it hasn't quite worked, which we'll get to when we talk about failures coming up. But sometimes my income would be a lot lower than that. And sometimes, like this other entrepreneur shared, it would go into the negatives. And I think from someone who was an avid saver and was always trying to, quote, do the right thing with her money and invest and save and work towards buying her first home, it was a really big mindset block for me to work through and understand business cash flow is different to personal cash flow, and you do have to invest and you shouldn't be scared to spend money as a business owner. And sometimes I still struggle to talk about this to friends or family who don't run a business because often not everybody understands. They're like, oh my gosh, why are you spending all that money on this or that gear? Or didn't you just spend all this money this last month doing this or flying to Los Angeles for a conference? And some people will just never understand that. And for me personally, it took a long time to understand. The next category of lessons from 5 years in business is boundaries. And there are so many things that I could discuss when it comes to boundaries. Hey, Ellen, don't give your clients your personal phone number and let them text you at 8 p.m. on a Friday. I could really go off about boundaries. But when I zoomed out and I decided what was the most important thing to share with you guys in this video, it was all about people pleasing and how the people pleasing, the constantly saying yes, can be a real negative, not just for you and your mental health, but also the growth of your business. And honestly, I thought I definitely got better at my people pleasing. I want to say it took me the first year or two, and I definitely got better at that. But one thing I haven't realized until this year is this idea of what is the cost of saying yes. Because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. What I mean by this is if somebody asks you, it's a client and they're like, hey, would you be able to do a few extra posts for this? Or would you be able to help out with this extra project? And maybe you do it for free, or maybe you do it for a discounted rate because they're a regular client and you want to, keep them happy. Again, guilty. But the next time you go through this scenario, I want you to ask yourself, what could you be doing? What else could you be doing with that time? What potentially are you saying no to here because of this other yes and because of the time that that's taking up? And I've done this before with smaller ticket clients, not so much in recent years, but definitely when I first got started. And it was taking on projects that were only a couple of $100s, maybe it was designing some templates. And yes, that couple of $100s is nice. But when I think back to what's really moved the needle in my business and brought in more higher ticket clients and helped me scale, it is like that marketing for my own business. And again, in the lesson to come, we'll get into marketing. But I didn't realize how much of those smaller projects were taking up my time, soaking up my time, and meaning that I had less energy to put into marketing my own services. So it's kind of like this little give and take. And even this month, I caught myself saying yes to a speaking gig. And I did try set some boundaries around it. And it's a free speaking gig, but I did want to do it because it was for someone that I knew. And I caught myself afterwards being like, Ellen, is that your people-pleasing tendencies coming out again? Like, did you need to say yes to that? And what is the cost of this yes? Like, now that you've said yes to that, you now have to prepare for that. You now have to travel to that event. You now have to spend time getting ready because it's in person. You got to do your makeup, you got to do your hair, you got to get your outfit ready, and then you've got to be there and deliver. And then there's also the other side of that. Like, I'm an introvert, so my battery takes some time to recharge after I've been to an in-person event. So there's like all of these other conversations of like, what could you be doing with that time for that little thing that your people-pleasing tendencies has just jumped in, and you're like, yep, I'm going to say yes to this project. Like, what are you saying no to by saying yes? And I wish I had learned this earlier. And honestly, it's really only been in the past year that this has started to make sense to me. This brings me to lesson number 3, which is all focused on clients. You want to be the best social media manager or be the best freelancer. You want to give it your all, and you do give it your all. And sometimes you end up overworking and burning yourself out. And then the client leaves. The client ends the contract and it breaks your heart. The first few times I had a client end a contract in my business, it did break me. Like, I was devastated. And again, it's the same pattern of self-doubt that starts to emerge in any of these scenarios. You start thinking, oh my gosh, do I need to give up? Am I actually even good at my job? Like, this person doesn't want to work with me. Why would anyone else want to work with me? And you start to spiral quite a lot. Again, speaking from experience. But now that I've been doing this for 5 years, what's become so obvious to me is that clients come and go all the time. And it's actually a normal part of being a freelancer. You're most likely not going to work with the same clients for years and years and years. I have one client that I've worked with for 4 years now, and we're continuing to work with each other in 2025. But that is not normal. Like, that is not what happens with every single client. And the moment you kind of release that and you're like, okay, it's fine if a client leaves me, I will survive. And in fact, there's probably a new client just waiting to come on board who's the dream client. And this other person leaving has made space for that dream client. Once you start to embrace that mindset, it becomes a little bit easier. But I didn't realize this until I had that 5 years of experience, and I could zoom out and I could be like, oh yeah, I can see the pattern emerging. Each time I'm devastated a contract ends, something new pops up. So I had that data to go off once I'd been in business for a few years, but I don't think I would have believed it if I'd watched a video like this of someone being like, oh, a new client's gonna come along. I'd be like, shut up. But my favorite client just left and I need to make money and this is devastating. And should I still be doing this job? But please, if you are in this position and you are watching this video, or if you're listening to the podcast, please, please, please trust me, keep going and just tell yourself this is normal. This is not an attack against me. This doesn't mean I'm not good at my job. This is what it is to be a freelancer. And I don't think a lot of people talk about that enough because we're too busy talking about how fabulous it is and, to become a digital nomad and work from anywhere and work your own hours. There are actually some cons to this job, guys. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. One thing I did was become overly attached and want to become like best friends and almost like merged myself into the business. Like, I felt like I was really, really part of it. And again, this is something that like I think is a good thing, fine line as a social media manager. Like, you want to be part of the team, but I think at the end of the day, you have to remember if you are working 24/7 for a client, if you're working on weekends, it's actually their business at the end of the day, and they could end your contract. Like, you are at the end of the day an expendable social media manager and they could end that contract. So yes, it's good to be invested and support your clients, but you also want to create like a little bit of separation and just prioritize yourself as well. I think I really just let those boundaries blur and I would do anything to make the client happy. And I wish I could just go back to past Ellen and hold her hand and be like, so what are you doing for your business at the moment, Ellen? Like, you're working these 12-hour days. How many hours of those are dedicated to you and growing your business, not just growing your client's Instagram page? Now, this wouldn't be a video about lessons in business if I didn't talk about failure. My favorite topic. I have failed so much in my business. Let's be blunt. Let's be honest. So many failures, from course launches that didn't go well, from client projects that didn't go well, from having to refund clients on projects that just couldn't work. And if I could tell any new entrepreneur one thing, it's that you need to get comfortable with failure. Failure is going to haunt you. It's going to hang around. It's going to be peeking its head around every single corner of your journey, and you need to just get comfortable with it. And what I've really learned, and again, this is by being able to zoom out in my business journey, but what I've learned is that failure is redirection. Failure is actually going to take me down the correct path that I need to be on. And by putting myself out there and quote, failing, I actually open up the doors for other opportunities. I've told this story a few times, but I originally launched a coaching program. It was a very generic, basic 6-week Instagram group coaching program. No one signed up. And it was pretty embarrassing, but I rolled with it. I kept promoting it and I kept it on my website. A few weeks later, I had someone inquire about coaching for social media management. They didn't want to learn about Instagram. They wanted to learn how I set up my social media management business so that they could do the same. That client that came on board as my first sort of official coaching student, that is where the curriculum for my program, the Dishing Up Digital School, was born. The Dishing Up Digital School has now gone on to make me thousands and thousands of dollars. In fact, we've definitely surpassed the $100,000 mark in sales for that program. It is a huge asset to my business, and I never probably would have created it if I hadn't put out the Instagram course first and quote, failed at that, and then had that person being like, oh, but I saw you do this coaching. Would you do a custom program for me on social media management? Like, that was the birth of what is my most successful, arguably, income stream in my business, and has been a game changer in enabling me to make more passive income, but also to connect with my passion around teaching and educating. And honestly, it's the most rewarding part of my job, like tuning into our student community, celebrating their wins, helping support other social media managers through their roadblocks and challenges. It is my favorite part of my job. So this is a lesson for you that if you're going through a tough spot at the moment, if you feel like you have quote failed, and I'm going to keep saying quote failed because I really don't believe in the word failure. I really believe there are lessons on the other side of that. So if that is you going through it at the moment, girl, I have been there, I have walked that path, and I just want to say again, stick with it. And the fifth and final lesson, we have to talk about marketing. Now, obviously, I make a lot of videos and I make a lot of podcast episodes about marketing. So if you are new around here, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you go binge some of my past episodes of the Dishing Up Digital podcast. But if I were to hone in on one very important and needle-moving lesson, it would be community over vanity metrics. Now, I hit my first 6 figures in business before I even had 3,000 Instagram followers. And I have hit many, many more milestones, like self-publishing a book, reaching over 1,000 customers through my courses and digital products, and so many other successful things that I've celebrated here on my YouTube channel. And that is now with only 16,000 Instagram followers. And again, followers is such like a personal thing. Like, everyone has a different opinion. Someone watching this might be like, 16,000 is a lot of followers. Other people are going to be like, how are you an Instagram specialist if you don't have 200,000 followers? And this is what I've really learned in my journey, is your follower count is so BS. Like, I'm sorry, but it is, because I know social media managers who have 3 times the following as me, and they're charging half the amount for their monthly services. I also know other creators who charge less than me for their sponsorships and collaborations. And what I've realized really feeds your soul as an entrepreneur long term is your community. Those numbers, they start to kind of blur and not really mean a huge amount. And that also goes for your revenue numbers. But what sticks with you are the messages from your community, the relationships, the friendships that you can form through having an online platform, through having your own business. Like I'll give a shout out to Abigail, actually. She's someone that I met through Instagram. I met right when I was starting my business. I went to a local networking event and we have become such good friends now. She comes over and plays board games with her husband and my partner. Yes, in case you don't know, I have an obsession with Catan and I'm very competitive. You probably actually don't want to play with me. It's surprising that, Abigail is still a friend of mine. But that is a beautiful friendship that's happened because of Instagram. We've connected there, we've built a community there, and then we've developed a close friendship. So it's beyond just like the community as in, you log in, you have lots of comments. It's also like the close friendships and connections that you can make. And I think my past self or my younger self really wanted to be accepted. And this is a totally normal human trait. Like this is what we have been doing since we were cavemen. We just want to be liked and accepted in the group. We just want to be friends. And again, a little context to my story. I was a nerd in high school. I didn't have a huge amount of friends. I would often read my book at lunchtime because I was so awkward and I really struggled to make friends. Like I wasn't the popular girl in high school. And when I started my business, I felt this pressure to be that popular girl online, in the entrepreneurial world and, be friends with certain people in certain social circles because that would help grow my business. And yes, networking is important. And yes, if you find that you do relate to those people and you do blend in with those friendship circles, like that's fabulous. But for me, I had to really let go of that pressure to be the cool popular chick and lean into my authenticity. This is like another sub lesson within your marketing, really, like leaning into that authenticity, but also like not pressuring myself to make friends with the cool girls on the internet. I'm like, I can be a nerd. I can attract my community of fellow nerds and we can rise together. No, I'm kidding. No, I just think I'm really grateful for the community that I have, and that's what lifts me up on any of these challenging days in business. Past Ellen really wanted 10,000 Instagram followers and she got it, and really it didn't make a huge difference in her business. Like it's a nice to have, but it's not an essential to your growth, which I know to so many people listening, this is going to be like the biggest mindset block to get over. They're like, how, this is my social proof. No one's going to want to work with me if I don't have 10,000 followers, or the more followers, the more money I'm going to make. And sometimes this is a lesson you have to learn the hard way by experiencing it and going through your own business journey. So thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Dishing Up Digital podcast. Make sure you are subscribed for next time and check out one of our previous episodes to continue binging and to continue up-leveling on your business journey.